All right, 5:30. Let's go. How's everybody? Cool. Thanks for the thumbs up, Kaylee. Okay, so we are so there's like no new like big material. So today we're just gonna kind of wrap up some loose ends that we didn't fully touch on, and just kind of keep adding some I don't know why the phrase is meat to something. Add more meat to the weather React app. And then Saturday, which is the last class of this module, I want us to go a little bit longer, like potentially up to 3 hours for people that can do it, and just sort of have more of like a collaborative kind of coding session where there's just like maybe 2 or 3 people in a group, just kind of working on adding some additional features to the weather app together. And then Devin, myself, will just kind of be hanging out, answering any like specific questions that come up, or just maybe kind of just kind of seeing how everything's going and helping out where appropriate. So I want to see how that style goes, because if it goes well, it may be something we try to do more, just to give you guys more hands-on practice with stuff. So that's the plan. So I'll just hop right into with where we left off last time. So I've got the terminal open, and I'm going to just go ahead and open VS Code from the curriculum repo, which has everything in it. And then I'll just close this stuff that I remembered I had open last time. And we are in module 4, day 7. And so I want to pick up where we left off last time from day 6. So I'm just going to copy this folder, this whole folder over, and put it inside day 7. And then once it finishes doing that, which it'll take a second, I'll rename that folder. But normally, if we were starting from scratch, we would do what command to make a new React app?
npm create React app.
Yep, very good. Thank you. So I'll just, oh, it's still copying stuff. Okay, it's probably copying this massive node modules folder is probably what it's taking so long to do. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now all that stuff's copied over. I'll go ahead and rename this. Maybe, yeah. All right. And then, okay, what do I need to do to run this though? To get this connected and like refreshing in my browser? Oh wow, it just like opened up a ton of other stuff. No, what the heck? Okay, but yeah, npm start. But hold on, let me see what happened here because it freaked out. I like tried to make it seem like I edited a bunch of files that I didn't. All right. Yeah, I could. Okay. So yeah, I've got everything copied over. Here's where we left off last time. And I'm going to go back to the terminal and then do npm start. Very good. And I still haven't. Oh, I'm not in the right spot because I had to. Yeah, sorry. So when you run an npm start, you have to do it from the root of your React app. And so I'm just at the root of the whole curriculum thing for OK Coders. So I have to CD to the correct spot. Because like npm start is like a command that you run for a like specific project. Though often that command is in every project, npm start, because it's just like a very common command. You still have to be like at the root of a project for it to work. So I'm gonna move to module 4, day 7, and then I'm going to cd into weather continued, which is the folder I copied over. And then if I list what's in there, the package JSON for this project is in there, which has the npm start command that we're running. And this probably will complain about Node. Okay, no, that was maybe npx that complained about that last time. Okay. So let me just make it full screen. So here's where we left off. And we had just hooked up routing. So when I say routing, I mean like using the URL to dictate what the application looks like and the kind of the state of our application, like where we are within it. And so we don't have anything on the home page, but if we go to the forecast page, then we see this forecast component, which has our different inputs that we wanted to collect from people. And then we can hit search. We get our Spinny while it's searching and talking over the network. And then we get just the partial result that we're pulling out. So yeah, that's where we left off last time. And so I actually want to, I don't think I ever showed you guys rendering multiple elements. So if we look at what we're getting back whenever we query the weather API. So whenever I hit search and this network request happens to the weather API that we've been using. So here's the URL that we're hitting, and it responds with the forecast. We get this forecast day array. I figured that we're getting 3 days back, which is a whole conspiracy. We haven't yet figured out why it's not respecting our request for 5 days. But we're getting 3 days back. And what I want to do is have like a table or like 3 cards that would show each day. But the content of each card is they pretty much look the same, like the card is like this like template, and then it's just slightly different information that's going to go in the template. And then we have like, we might have like 1 day or 5 days or 10 days. Like it just kind of depends on how many days we ask for in our query. And so in React, we need some way to sort of loop over however much information we have, and then like create elements on the page based off how much information we have that could vary. So like you can imagine we could also just have like a table with like hundreds of rows or something like that. And so that's just like another example of something you would need to loop over to create. So I don't think I quite showed you all how to do that. So the first thing for that is we probably need to figure out like what we want the card to look like. So we can either do a table or a card, and I think I'm leaning towards a card, to be honest. And so we can go to our component library that we were using, which is React Bootstrap. And we can look at the docs for that and see, you know, what components are available to us to use. And I think I liked cards. I'm going to go to cards. And then I kind of liked this more simple card right here. So I think this is sort of what I want to use. So I can copy this and just start playing with this. So where this is happening is inside the forecast component. So I'm going to go to, I had like broken stuff up. I like tried to start kind of organizing things. So I actually have like a forecast folder. And then that has the two different inputs. So the location and then the number of days, and then our search button right here. Is this, can you guys see this okay? Okay, a little bigger. Okay, so yeah, here's our form. And then, you know, whenever we're doing the search, we have our spinner that shows up if it's loading. And then we've got this other component, it's like this, another component we made called forecast display, which takes in as a prop, sort of like a parameter, the data that we're receiving back from the API. And so then we can go to that component. So, you know, we render that forecast display component inside forecast, like as a child of forecast. And so we can look at this component by going to that component. So here's the forecast display component. And then we just say, you know, if what's passed in, if they passed in weather data and that weather data has a location and that object has a property called name on it. So if all that's true, then I want you to show this, just this H3, this city thing, and then the data from that. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So this component, this forecast display, like if we don't have the data quite yet, so if we don't have a response from the API yet, and so we don't have any information, like we just want to return nothing. We just don't want to display anything. And so in my React component, if I want to just like return nothing and not evaluate anything else, like I can just return at any point in this function. So, and like you can do like a, you know, if there's no data, then return this. Otherwise, return this other component stuff. So and that's just conditional rendering. So like just based off of some sort of check, an if check, just some sort of Boolean truthy falsy condition, do one thing and then or do some other thing. So that's what's happening here. But this is like one way to do it, which I think is potentially a little confusing, and it's a little messy in certain cases. And so if I'm doing that within a component like this that has like a specific purpose, which is like only show something if there's data, then I kind of prefer a different style, which is I would just say like if basically this same condition right here. you know, if we don't have that information, if we don't have the props.weatherdata.location.name, then just return nothing. That's basically what this is saying. Just return nothing, or just like you could return like an empty div or something like that. So if we don't have anything, just return nothing. If we do have something, then I want you to do this other stuff. So this is equivalent to what we had before. It's just another way of doing conditional rendering, which is like a normal if statement. So we can look and see if that's working real quick. I'll just refresh this page. So yeah, we don't have anything. So it's not showing anything. And then if we do the search and we get data back, then we do render that H3 right here, and then the location.name. So that's where these two things is coming from. Okay, so we want to show a little bit more, and I want to start building out this template. And so that's where this card is coming from React Bootstrap. So I'm going to copy this and put it here. And then card is not imported, so I need to import that from React Bootstrap. So that looks like import card from React Bootstrap /card. And then it kind of does this interesting thing where all the other sub components of the card just sort of get referenced from card itself. So we have card imported, and so then like card body and card title and card subtitle all just sort of pull from that import. Okay, and then let me just change some of the stuff in here. So instead of card title, well, actually, let me see what this looks like real quick. So we could do like, you know, city weather, and then I guess we may not need a subtitle. Well, let's actually see what data we're getting back from the API. So we've got forecast day. Oh, and then we also have the location data. Yeah, so I think we could do city and then the date as the subtitle. So like, you know, Oklahoma City weather, and then the date could be here. And then we could do like the min and the max maybe for Fahrenheit's, and then maybe the average. Let's just start with that though. All right, so yeah, I want the card title to be the location, or I guess we can say weather for the location. So weather for, and then for the subtitle, so what I'm going to do is sort of cheat for a second. I just want to get this working for one. So I'm going to, so like if I have the data, then I'm going to do like const location name equals props dot weather data dot location name, and then I'm going to use that here just to clean that up a little bit. And then I'm going to say const date equals props dot weather data. And then this is, so if you look at the data we're getting back, so I'm just like parsing through this object that we're getting back from the API. So location name is the only thing we've pulled from the object so far, but I want to pull from the forecast key. And then I want to go to the forecast day array. And then I'm going to ultimately want to loop through each object in that array. But for now, I'm just going to pull one out to sort of prototype what I want the card to look like. So I'm going to pull the 0th element from forecast day and then grab date, which is this string here. So that will look like props.weatherdata.forecast and then forecast day, I think, double check, forecast day, and then forecast day is an array, so I want the 0th element, and then that 0th element will be an object, and that object has date on it. So I'm going to pull date from it. Okay. I'm grabbing just the first date in the forecast array that I'm getting just to kind of do some quick prototyping. I could also do const first date equals, and then copy the drilling I did to grab the first one and move that here. So here's the first element from the forecast data, and then I would grab first date, that date. When I say first date here, I mean that whole object for the first forecast day. And then I want not just date, I also want, sorry if this is a little small, let me zoom in a little bit. I also want the day average temp Fahrenheit. So let me grab that. So const average temp equals date dot day dot and then average temp. So all this is just like, I'm just kind of trying the data I care about. I'm just trying to kind of make some new variables for them up here and then just pull from the data coming from the API out that information so that I can then reference these variables inside the HTML that I'm going to return, or the JSX that I'm going to return. So I've already pulled let me just delete the existing. We were, before we started doing this card, we had like just city and then location name. I'm just going to delete that. And then, so here's our card. And then we got the title is weather for, and then instead of this, I'm going to reference location name. And then for the subtitle, I'm going to put our date. So you can do like date, first, or sorry, not first date, but date. And then in the card text, I'm just going to put average temp, average temp. Then these links, I'll just delete for now. They could be useful, so maybe I'll just comment them out. So this is, if you need to comment something out in JSX, it's this really weird syntax where you have to do a curly or a tilde. And then you do this like /* syntax to comment it out. But there's also like a shortcut in VS Code to just like comment it out with a keystroke, and it knows the syntax for it. All right, so let's see what we're seeing on the page, which is an error. Okay, so it gets really mad at me. So we got to figure out what happened. So it said, cannot read properties of undefined, reading average temp. So there's like some typo I made, or like I like misread the object whenever I was trying to parse the data I wanted. So saying, so this is a pretty common error that you'll see in JavaScript, which is, hey, you're trying to read average temp F, but the property that you're trying to read that off of is undefined. So when we go back to look at our code, average temp is throwing the error, but day is undefined. And that's because I tried to read it off date instead of first date. So date here is like the date that I pulled from first date, which is like 2022 6/6 or whatever. So I'm trying to read the property day on like a string, which is undefined, and then I'm trying to read a property on something undefined. So I just need to change this to first date. So I just kind of did a typo there, because first date is the object that then has the day property on it. So I'll refresh all this. Try again. Okay. The card looks horrible. And it only has the date. I don't know why. That's so weird. So the title is like not showing up at all. So, oh, you know what? I think it's, wait. So yeah, the first thing that you try to do here to figure out what's going on is I would just like take the, like use the element finder thing and just see if like what's on the page. So I'll click that. And so, yeah, we have our card div, and then that makes the card body div. And then it made a card title, which should have our like weather for city in it, which it's there, but it just, so you can see the text is there, but it's probably white, and our card is white. So I'm going to click on this div and see. Yeah, so our app header, which is the styling that we're using that just came from React, you know, like how I was like, oh, this looks so pretty, I'm just going to use what React gave us. That is setting the color to white. I think, yeah. Yeah. So that's throwing off our card a little bit, just because like there's the styling of the card isn't expecting that. So, you know, we have some decision making to do. This white card actually looks really bad with our dark background. So I think we have to say bye-bye to our dark background potentially. Or or you could figure out how you would want to make this stuff look, you know, if you wanted a dark background, but I don't really have the time for that. So what I'm gonna do is just get rid of and the app CSS. Here's our app header. I'm gonna say bye-bye to the color. And I mean, we could choose a different background color, I guess, but I'm just gonna get rid of it for now, see what we have. So here's where we are. It doesn't look as good as it did before, but at least it's working. And you can still see the navbar decently well. It's sort of like a grayish color. All right, so yeah, so here's our card. So we have a title, we have our subtitle. You know, I feel like I just want to see what happens if I get rid of a lot of this. Yeah, so that was sort of like that was like creating a column and sort of centering everything. I don't want this lesson to be about styling or anything like that. I'm gonna leave this as it was because it looks a little bit better. Oh, and then Align Center was doing the search button, which did look a little better. But I didn't like what that was doing to the card because it was making the card aligned in a way that I didn't like. But we're gonna have to just deal with that, I think. Okay, but yeah, the CSS that came with React, Create React app, is like what's sort of making it look this way. So just be aware of that. That typically people just kind of delete that CSS whenever they're starting a project. Okay, so we have average temp. I'm gonna put this stuff in. Let's look at their docs. All right, so within here, I think I'm going to do an unordered list, a list item that is average temp. So this looks like. Something's making this text huge. All right, yeah, I'm going to get rid of this font size. Okay. Okay, so yeah, average temp, and then I want to add the high. So high temp, and then I want to add the low, so low temp. So then I'll do high temp, low temp, and then I just need to pull these from there. So that'd be high temp, state, average temp. So I don't know what that property is. So forecast day, max temp, and then min temp are the two properties we want. So I guess I should use that. So I'll do max temp, min temp, min temp, and then instead of high temp and low temp like I did down here, this will be max temp, min temp. And then honestly, I should change that here too. Okay. So let's see, cool. All right, so we have average, the high and the low. So this can be our card for now. It's our MVP card. And so now the key is, okay, how do we have 3 of these show up? How do we do that? Like we don't hard code 3 of them, right? Like we need to just have it loop through the data and add as many cards as there is data. Okay. So so to do that, does anybody remember, like, if I have, oh, it's mad at me for putting an unordered list inside of p tag, but who cares for now? Normally I'd fix that, but it's fine for now. So if I have like numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I want to turn that list, that array of numbers, into a new list, a new array of numbers that has each number squared. So I want to do, 1 times 1, 2 times 2, 3 times 3, and I want a new list with that information. What method available on an array is like the best way to do it?
Is it a for loop?
So we will be doing a loop, but there's like a method. It's like there's for each on array, but we want to have it like return a new array. Like we don't want to mutate this one in place. So like if I was just, let me go back to the code here. So if I had,
oh, is it map?
Yes, yeah, map. So if I have like const numbers and then I wanted to do const numbers squared, I would do, numbers and then something. So I don't want to mutate numbers. I just want to, loop through this array, do something to each number, and then get a new array back with the result of what I did to each number as an element in that same position in the array. So I want to start with an array of 6 elements. I want to end with an array of 6 elements, but I want it to be a new array with some modification to each element in the array. So that's what map is for. It's specifically to create a new array with the same number of elements and then just do something to each element. It's one of the most awesome methods that there is. It's so great. You'll use it all the time. And so, yeah, what that would look like is, map, and then you would just pass like an anonymous arrow function typically. And you would say, for each element, I want you to take the element and then square it, which is, element times element is squaring it. So this one line of code is going to give you back a new array, with 1, 4, 6, etc. There's not 6, 1, 4, 9. That's what map is for. So take an array of things, take the data that's in it, do something to the data that's in it, and then receive a new array. So, sorry, does someone have a question? Okay, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to take the array of days. So we've got in like the data we received from the API, we've got this forecast day array. So it's got, 3 elements, which is all the data for that one day, right? So we're trying to, we have an array of those elements. So just like we have an array of numbers, in my previous example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just like you can call map on an array of numbers, you can call map on an array of anything. And in our case, an array of objects. So we're starting with this whole object. And then what we want to do to each object is essentially turn each object into HTML. So like we want to turn each object into our card that has the data that we want to display on the page. And so we can, the same principle that we're following to turn the array of numbers into a new array of numbers with them multiplied, we can use that same strategy to take an array of objects and turn it into an array of JSX. And the JSX, is the HTML of what we want to show on the page. And React just is sort of built in a way where if you give it an array of JSX, it knows to just like render those as siblings on the page in that order. So like if you think about like a list item or like an unordered list with multiple list items, like whenever you have an array of a JSX and then another JSX and then a JSX, it just will like put them on order on the page, just one after the other. All right, so it's kind of crazy. It's really cool, but this is often the strategy you'll see people take is they will call map on an array and then have it turn into JSX, like each element of the array, to then render it on the page multiple times. So that's what we'll do. So I'm going to delete, or I'm going to just comment out this. And we have the location name is coming from like a different key, like a different part of the object, like because each day's forecast is for the same location. So we just need to pull the location name out one time. But then all of the stuff that we did here, the date, the average temp, the max temp, the min temp, and then this card stuff, we need to do for every single one. And so we actually, there's a couple ways to do this, But often what you'll see is someone make a new component, which is like just this one single card. So we'll make like a, single day forecast display card component or something like that. That is this JSX, and then we can sort of decide if we want it to just like, it can just like accept these as props essentially, like the date and the average temp and the max temp and the min temp and the location name or something. So that's what we need to set up. That's the approach that I want to take. So I'm going to save this component and then just sort of copy forecast display and just start with it as like my template and just kind of remove what doesn't make any sense. And then, so this will be, single day forecast card. That's a pretty good name for it. So I'm making a new component. So I copied what we had, so I need to change the names and modify it a little bit. So I need to name this the same as I named the file. So single day forecast card, and change this export to the same thing, single day forecast card. And then I don't need to do this if check thing anymore. So I'm going to delete that. Delete this example we had before. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that all these variable names, the location name, the first date, or not the first date, but the location name, the date, the average temp, the max temp, the min temp, I'm going to have those become props of this component. So this component's going to receive those values from the thing that's going to be rendering it on the page. So from the parent component that actually renders our new single day forecast card component, it's going to receive all this information that it's supposed to display from its parent as props. And so I'm going to delete all of these, and then they just need to pull it from props. So I need to do props.location name, props.date, props.average temp, and props.max temp, and props.min temp. Now, you'll see online and like in other documentation that you may look at, sometimes people will do a fancy thing called spreading props, where in this function here, they would put like an object like this, an object looking thing, and then do location name like this. So this is like advanced JavaScript syntactical sugar, which is like someone's passing in an object and you're like pulling a property out of the object before the function even, like before you even get into the function. So it's like just syntax sugar so that you can just reference the location name instead of props.location name. It's sort of whatever you prefer to do. You'll just see people do this a lot. So I just wanted to mention that, like, if you see someone using props in this way, where they never actually reference props.location name, but they reference something in the function up here, that's just syntactic sugar. You should just know that. I'm just going to go with this style of doing props as the name of the parameter that's coming into this React component. But whenever you render single day forecast card, you need to pass these properties: location, name, date, average temp, max temp, min temp. Okay. All right, so we made our card, and then we're going to go back to our original forecast display component and use this new card, this new component that we made. I'm going to go back, and instead of this whole thing, we now have a new component that does this. So I'm going to delete this and then put forecast, or the component's name is single day forecast card. So it actually gave me the option to, like, I hit tab and it like auto imported that for me. And then notice we import card in the other component that we made. And so this is no longer a relevant import. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it because we're using it inside this single day forecast card component. And I need to, so in order for this to work, what did I say I needed to do with single day forecast card? I need to pass it what information? So if I want to pass this location name to this component, what does anybody know the syntax for that? Let me pull these up side by side. So here's the so I got two code files side by side. Here's the definition of the single day forecast card component. It is expecting whatever is rendering it to give it data, to pass data in essentially as like a parameter to a function. Like, this is a function and it's taking a parameter called props. But in React, like, we call these things, these functions that take props and return JSX, we call those components. And the way that they show up in your app is not by like calling the function, but by rendering the component in another component. And so the other component that is going to use this single day forecast card is this, the forecast display component that we had made, and I'm trying to render it right here. So here's where I'm rendering this single day forecast card component. And you'll see this syntax, like if you don't have any children that you need to pass it, you can just close it like that, but you can also do it like this. Like, it's probably what you're more used to. But there's no children, like there's nothing in between the tags. And so in that case, like, that we need to pass to it. So in that case, we can do that previous syntax that I had. But anyways, here's where I'm rendering that component, and it's expecting me to pass it information for it to display in its JSX. So how do I pass a component that I'm trying to render information? How do I pass props to a component? Well, let's pretend that I don't know. So what would I do? So I would search pass props to React component. And then I can go to this article. And then they show an example here of passing a prop to the app. And the name of the prop is name. And he passes his name as a string here, Nathan. So this is the syntax for passing props. And it's just sort of like a key value kind of pair thing. So, oh, can you guys can't see what I just did. But yeah, I had just searched, pass props to React component, and then found this guide. And then kind of scrolled down to this first example here. So yeah, it's this is sort of the syntax. So app can then reference a prop called name inside of it. So for us, we want to take in all these props: location name, average temp, max temp, min temp. And so to pass that to this, I do location name equals, and I want to pass this location name up here that's pulling it out of the data. And so to reference something that's not like a primitive, you have to do this bracket syntax again, and then reference the variable name right there. So it's just the same name. So the location name prop is going to have the value of the location name variable that I defined in this component. All right. So I also need to pass 8 average temp max temp and min temp. Okay, so let's just see if it's working real quick. Okay, so that's working. So real quick, what I did was I have this forecast display component that receives all the data from the API. If we have data, meaning we've like ran the query and we've gotten data back, then this component will sort of parse that data to pull out the properties we're interested in so far. We may be interested in more, but this is what we care about so far. And then I then return to have rendered to the page a div, which then, and then another div. We don't really need all these divs. I then return to the page another component that I wrote. So I import that component, the single day forecast card, and I pass it the data that I pulled from the API response object. So I'm passing it. You can think of this as like calling a function and then giving it these parameters. So I'm giving it, and I just name these things the same. But this is a prop name, and then this is the value that I want the prop to have. And so then within this single day forecast card, I can then reference all the props passed into it. So this component can reference props.location name, props.date, props.average temp, props.max temp, props.min temp, only because I am, when I'm rendering that component, passing those props. So this is just a way to sort of pass information around in a React component, because like a big React app is just like a big tree of a bunch of custom components you made that just get called by other components. It's like there's the main app component, which then renders a bunch of other components, and then those components render a bunch of other components, and so on, depending on how complex your app is. Okay, so there's one thing left to do, which I can already tell I feel like I've lost everybody, and so this is like this extra part's really hard, or it might be really confusing for you all. But so far we're only doing one day, and the whole point here is to do more than one day. And so we need to do this whole map thing. And so the way that that's going to look, I'm just going to do it real quick because I know we're almost out of time. And then we can maybe talk more about it next class. But we're going to do const all forecast cards equals, and we're going to do props dot weather data dot forecast day, but instead of just grabbing only the first element off of it, we're going to map all of them. So we're going to do dot map, and this will be, we can name this whatever we want. So like you might see like abbreviations like forecast day, like meaning like FD meaning forecast day, or like day or something like that. And so I'm going to map all this stuff, and I'm going to pull these properties. Instead of first date for all these, I'm now referencing this day, which that's going to be the whole object for each day with all the data on it. So we do day.date to get day, day.day, that's confusing. So I'm going to do all this forecast. So this will be forecast 8, forecast day, forecast day, forecast day. And then I'm going to return this card. And then this is just like a cool thing with JSX, like this all forecast cards is an array of all of our forecast cards here. And so I just can like render this like you would other stuff. So like when you want to reference a variable name and inject it into your JavaScript or your JSX, you use this thing. And then I'm going to do all forecast cards. So we'll see how this went. Yeah, okay. So yeah, you can see each day here now. And it doesn't look pretty. We're going to want to clean this up a little bit and like put some spacing around the cards and things like that. But this is sort of a rough way of doing it. And we're probably getting an error, which is this whole, each child in a list should have a unique key prop. Don't worry about that quite yet. I can talk about it next class. But yeah, when you want to um, have like an array of stuff show up, like when you want multiple things showing up based off of data that you have. Typically you'll see people use map for that. So I know that this syntax might have been like pretty wild to you. But yeah, I mean, typically you can just sort of, when you know you need to do this, you can look up an example of someone doing it, just kind of copy it and adapt it to your needs potentially. So that's what you could do with this code that you see here. So, all right, I know I went over. Any questions or anything? Okay. All right. All right. If that was super hard and confusing, then I just recommend just kind of looking at the code. I'll push it up right now. Just kind of look at it and try to follow the chain of what's happening. Or potentially read. I'll send you guys, I think I already sent that as homework, but there's a React docs page that has an example of rendering like multiple to-dos or something, I think. So maybe just take a peek at that too. And then yeah, Saturday we'll just be kind of working on this stuff together. So yeah, bring questions and stuff on Saturday. I won't be doing like a traditional lecture format. And as many people that can come in person, please do, as long as you feel comfortable. But if you're going to be virtual, then you'll just be kind of pair programming with the people that are virtual on the call. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.